Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. I welcome all of you to today's session of Daily Stock, in which we are going to take a look on the earnings for the first quarter of fiscal year 2024 for Facebook, of which the Meta is the parent company. Earlier, it was known as the Facebook, but now it has rebranded itself as Meta, and it's a Meta platform holding all the different social networks, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. If you consider the Meta's share price moves over last few quarters, particularly over last 1.5 year, its run has been stellar. You can even call it a scorching run on the higher side, where its valuation have almost multiplied 5 times if you count it from the bottom to the very high. And after this scorching bull run, we are seeing some sort of breather. We can say that it might be even a consolidation phase after this dream run. So in this backdrop, we have to consider its quarterly earnings and its recent price performance to see what are the kind of opportunities which might come our way if we have to trade and invest in the Meta's stocks. So for that, we have to assess its fundamental business scenario and then also gauge the investor sentiments regarding its stocks and the general sentiments in the broader market to see what we can do to take advantage of the situation. For the first quarter, the company's earnings were quite solid. Its revenues have risen sharply from around $28.65 billion to more than $36 billion. That's the growth of more than 20 percentage point, and this has also resulted in sharp rise in the net income, which have almost gone past the 100% mark and risen beyond twice. So the earnings, the net incomes have gone to $12.37 billion from $5.7 billion year back. So if you see this kind of earnings for any kind of company, you can do nothing else than being impressed. But even after these kind of earnings report, we didn't really see any further gains, any further rise in the share price of the Meta. But that is mainly attributed to the fact that these kind of earnings were more or less kind of factored in the share price of the Meta, which have, as I have said already in my introductory remark, more than quadrupled in last 1.5 year. So you can say that these earnings were pretty much factored in the share price of the Meta, and to some extent maybe the earnings were not really good enough to raise its valuations further, and this might be the time for us to take a ringside view of the developments and opt for a more moderate approach and also streamline the trading approach by using broader markers which are pointing to the consolidation phase for the meta shares. In this scenario, I feel that even though the market view remains bullish on the meta and it is likely to retain its bullish inclination over next few quarters at the minimum, we will have to try to take the advantage of the situation while adopting the strategies like buy on dips or simply using the support and resistance format. As I feel, instead of expecting further one-sided bull run on the higher side, we should be more prepared for the range to hold for the latter part of this year unless there is any unforeseen development, any big fundamental development which changes the valuation substantially. I don't really feel that we are likely to see the kind of bull run which we saw in the last fiscal year to unfold this time as well. This year is likely to be of moderate growth for the Meta's earnings as well as for its share price. So in that backdrop, we will have to be a bit prudent with our strategies, which we can apply for taking advantage of the situation. The EPS is more than twice in comparison to the last year's numbers. It stood at $4.86 for the quarter ended March 31st, 2024 in comparison to the EPS of $2.21 for the quarter ended March 31st, 2023. So there is a robust growth. There is no question about it. But I feel that even this robust growth is not really likely to bring in further gains, the kind of gains which we have already witnessed in the share price of the Meta's Meta's last year bull run. We are not going to go into the details of the balance sheet much. I think it is healthy enough for the company of Meta size, and there is no concern regarding the going concern for the Meta. Coming to the cash flows, the cash generated by the operating activities have risen to $19.24 billion, which is quite a tremendous number. It's a lot higher, I think around 30 percentage point, 30 to 40 percentage point higher in comparison to the last year's numbers when the operating activity had brought in close to 14 billion US dollars. Of this money, the investing activities took away $8.7 billion, which is increase of over 2 billion in the last year's figures, as there has been a lot more cash outflow for the purchase of marketable debt securities and sale and maturities of marketable debt securities have also brought in $4.6 billion. So this difference of around 2.2 billion is being reflected in these higher cash outflow on account of investing activities. For the financing activity, we had this cash outflow of $19.7 billion, that is sharply higher in comparison to $10.5 billion a year back. This is attributable to the higher cash outgo on account of repurchase of common stock. So this year, the Meta has spent $15 billion in comparison to $9.3 billion a year back, and that is one of the biggest factor here. Along with that, there is dividend payments. There is also higher outgo on account of taxes. So all these factors have pushed this cash outflow for the financing activity by around $9 billion. Resultantly, we have this decrease in the cash and cash equivalents. So you can say that the company, the Meta platform, has divested some of its cash pile by giving it to the shareholders in the form of repurchase and the dividend payments. But still, it has a hefty cash pile at its disposal, with it sitting on $33.28 billion. Now we turn our gaze to the technical side of the story. So for that, we head to the JForex 4 platform. from the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the Meta's shares charting using hourly as the candle period. Here you can see that for the second half of May, the Meta share price have consolidated in this price band of around 480 to 450. We didn't really see any one-sided sharp move on the either side. It did found resistance close to 480 mark, and on two occasions it declined after finding resistance around that area. So this time around also this selling accelerated after it struggled to climb past the prior swing high. So in the next few sessions, I feel that the inclination is likely to remain on the bearish side, but it's not really likely to be overtly bearish. It is going to be consolidating with slight bias on the bearish side, as there is not much of a reason for it to sharply decline. Of course, the broader indices, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 have been trading with bearish undertone over last few sessions. If selling intensifies there, maybe some impact is also going to be visible in the individual shares of these big companies. But apart from that, there are not many negatives for the Meta share. So I remain confident that even in the near term, if the price formation is looking slightly bearish, it's not really likely to give way to any sharp fall in the share price of the Meta. Now expanding our gaze to the medium term. In the medium term, the share price band is on the higher side. After its quarterly numbers were released, it declined sharply from the price levels to 500 to 414. That was the lowest point touched in the very next day, in the very next session after the earnings report came in. But since then, it has found its footing and tried to climb on the higher side, though the rise has not been that fast, but still it has been able to sustain its momentum, and it is not really far off from the prior swing high. It is around 10 percentage point away, and it is around equal percentage point away from its recent low as well. So it's somewhere in between these two key price levels, and I feel in the medium term the outlook is still favorable for the bulls. It is still holding well, and adopting a buy and dip approach is going to be the best thing to do in this kind of price formation for the Meta. So if over next few sessions, if over next few weeks there is not much of a decline and the price band holds while giving us the hint of further move on the higher side, we can pretty much expect the Meta stock to rise and climb towards 500 or even beyond that in coming weeks. So that possibility remains strong given the way price action is looking at the current juncture. On the medium term, the things were inclined on the bullish side, and on the long term, the things are not really much different. The only difference is in the way things have turned out for the Meta over last few quarters. The rally has been quite strong and one-sided. It hasn't really shown much of an decline over the last two quarters. This is the only time where we have seen some decline in the Meta stock price from its peak. Earlier, it used to simply go and correct by a few percentage points, and in no time it used to rebound and start rallying again. Now, this time, after the report came in, there was this drop, and after the drop, the shares have been holding, but I feel now that this phenomenal run has already taken place. Maybe over next few months, the things for the Facebook remains bullish, but not that bullish. And here, adopting a cautious approach is going to be a much better idea. So for next few months, if your outlook remains favorable for the bull run, I feel the price area around 300 is going to be crucial. If the share price doesn't really decline much, and if it continues to hold above or anywhere close to 350 to 400 price mark, and tries to again regain the lost ground and tries to show that there is steam left on its possible bullish tendency, we can try to take advantage of the situation and go and initiate new long trade from the long term perspective as well. So here I feel we need to give it more time for the consolidation phase to unfold, and some clarity is going to emerge in the meantime, and then it will be better to make the fresh assessment and think where to trade, whether to simply sit on the sidelines or to jump in and put the money on the bullishness on the meta stock. That's it from my side for today's session, where we consider the meta's earnings outlook. We have seen these bull run for the Meta unfold over last few quarters. Its earnings have also risen sharply over last 1 year, and now the question is whether it is likely to contain to continue to grow in a similar fashion, or is there is some room for the correction and consolidation. And I am more in favor of the latter. Now it's time for me to say goodbye for the day. I will be back on Monday with equally interesting company to work with. So do come back. See you next time around. Till then, have a fabulous day ahead, a fabulous weekend. See you on Monday. Goodbye.